tonight. All set for tomorrow's governorship election in Ekiti State as INEC distributes sensitive and non-sensitive materials to its registration area centers across the state. Security operatives ensure force in readiness for Ekiti governorship election as residents look forward to a peaceful poll. APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu submits Ibrahim Masari as his running mate as more political parties beat INEC's deadline for the submission of candidates list for the 2023 general elections.
On business news tonight, World Trade Organization passes unprecedented global trade deals on fishing, subsidies, health, and others.
On sports news tonight, Liverpool and Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich reach agreement for the sale of Senegal forward Sadio Mane.
International news from London. Ukraine's bid to join the European Union has been given a major boost after it was recommended to be given candidate status.
It's been a solemn day in Ondo State as victims of the deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church on June 5th are laid to rest in the town. The day started with a funeral mass held at a different location from the church premises, attended by family members, clergy and state government officials. After the service, families of the victims took the bodies of their loved ones home for private burial ceremonies. Governor Rotimi Akeredolu expressed his sadness over the killings and prayed for the repose of the souls of the departed, assuring them that they have not died in vain.
As at the last count, these animals who came to St. Francis Church murdered 40 people. And we still have over 70 in the hospital. Some have been discharged. What is your governor going to say in defense? Nothing. I am here before you to accept a failure on security. We have failed. We have failed. We have failed to defend these people. Not because we are not trying, but because the forces on the other side, they are evil. And they have support.
We'll have more on today's funeral of the victims of the Owo Church attack later tonight. In the meantime, residents of Ekiti appear to be in high spirits. Distribution of election materials for the Ekiti state governorship election continued today in readiness for the polls tomorrow. This time, the materials were sent to registration area centres at the local government offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission for onward dispatch to the polling units. The items include sensitive and non-sensitive materials, which were received from the state headquarters of the Commission yesterday. Meanwhile, some election observers have been assessing the activities in Ekiti State ahead of the governorship election. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
Vehicles waiting to convey election materials to the various registration area centers in Ado Ekiti in Ekiti Central Senatorial District. The materials which were received from the state INEC headquarters include the bimodal voter accreditation system devices, the voter registers and ballot papers, among other sensitive and non-sensitive materials. To ensure transparency in the distribution process, political party agents and INEC supervisory polling officers from the registration area centers are expected to be around. But according to the supervising resident electoral commissioner, not all have arrived as at the time of our visits.
The SPOs that will take charge of the materials that we are taking to the 8 racks are around. So once in the next few minutes, the other party agents arrive, then we will move to the racks.
In Idosi in Ekiti North Senatorial District, election materials have also been received and the supervisory polling officers have begun collection. They take inventory of every item they have received as they test the beavers' devices to ensure they are in good condition.
Some materials, we have the sensitive and the non-sensitive parts. The non-sensitive materials, we have done the distribution, patching to the various arrays and units. That one we completed long time ago.
In the meantime, residents of the state are looking forward to a free and fair election come Saturday. No one captures this better than 75-year-old Elizabeth Omolayo, who is a trader in Ikere Market in Ekiti South Senatorial District. She says she has been voting since she turned 18 and is ready to cast her vote for the candidate of her choice in the governorship election on Saturday. Mrs. Omolayo is not the only one with such expectation. Other residents say they hope the next governor will address the challenges of infrastructure, education and ensure improved welfare for civil servants in the state.
My expectation is that there's no how person will go to examination. Somebody must be a first. If you are not in a first, you will become a second person. So this is not something that person will be gra-gra. It's an intelligent something. So that Ekiti people will know that there is change. Anybody that enter, it is God's way that's brought into up. It's not that because of your power or it's your wisdom.
No problem. Whosoever that God wishes to be there. So whosoever that they announce that is the one that win the election, all is well.
For a state that prides itself as the fountain of knowledge, there is no doubt that this is a defining moment for the people of Ekiti State. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, many residents appear to be in high spirits ahead of the exercise tomorrow in Ekiti State, with assurance from INEC that the civic rights to vote will not be hindered. Men of the police have also held a show of force in demonstration of their readiness for the exercise. Our correspondent Daridu reports.
Quiet and peaceful. That's the mood here in Ekiti, a day before the people decide who leads the state for another 4 years. The quietness of the less busy streets is sometimes interrupted with sirens. Police vans convey security operatives on election duty are sighted at different locations.
17,000 security operatives will be working in this election and already deployed to 16 local governments of the state. The people are quite excited and hoping that this election will be credible, free, fair, and free of violence as well. On the streets, everything seemed clear and calm.
The market is busy with a lot of buying and selling, a usual activity preceding most elections. For these residents, nothing will keep them away from voting.
With the level of the preparation or awareness that have been on ground before this day, it shows that Ekiti Kete are ready to choose their leader.
Now that they've embarked on the show of force, those that are planning to cause havoc will be restricted and will be afraid to come out.
At the first headquarters in Ekiti, it's obvious the morale is high. Anti-riot equipment are not only on standby, they are tested. Police choppers fly across the town. Area surveillance also taken care of.
We want to have a level playing ground for everybody to be equal during the exercise. No sort of harassment, intimidation, excessive use of power by any individual or group of persons.
The security operatives will have to keep a closer eye on the conduct of the election, as civil society organizations are raising the possibility of vote buying.
The past governorship election in 2014 and 2018 were fraught with widespread vote buying, even popularizing the term stomach infrastructure as a synonym for voter inducement.
As these men and women move to their various election duty posts, the police insist that the 17,000 security operatives deployed for the election are meant to secure the state and not to intimidate the electorate. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
Let's go now to our political editor, Seun Okinbaloye, who is in Ekiti with the rest of the team for an update on tomorrow's preparations for the elections. Hi, Seun.
Thank you so much, Amarachi. Well, it's just few hours before the polls open tomorrow. The polls will open at 8:30 a.m. and hopefully to close at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. The D-Day that the people of Ekiti State have been waiting for. Opportunity to have another governor that will govern this state for the next 4 years. It's been a very clement weather. It's been raining most of the evenings here in Ekiti, the Ekiti State capital. One of the areas that have the largest voting population in Ekiti State, and all eyes will be on a place like Ekiti, Ilawe, and a few other areas in Ekiti State with a huge voting population. But one thing is paramount. A new governor will emerge after tomorrow's election. And one thing is something, the people's vote will count. That is one thing that INEC has promised. As far as the BVAS and all of that processes that the Commission has put in place, they say everything is watertight. And we're considering the issue of security. Over 17,000 police officers have been deployed. We saw a lot of them earlier today, moving to the different local government areas. Over 3,000 BVAS have been provided by INEC, which INEC says they are tested, and there was a mock test of the election where the exercise, according to INEC, came out perfect. Well, all of these promises have been made by the security and the electoral umpire. This is going to be the first election after the 7 months ago when INEC conducted election in Anambra State. But the test of the Electoral Act will be seen tomorrow, the first time this new law has been passed and will be tested by the people of Ekiti State. How viable this law is for our election will be seen tomorrow when the people of Ekiti State, almost 1 million of them who are registered, will march to the poll to elect their governor. It's going to be an eye-octave, a very, very intensely contested election tomorrow. That's what observers and political scientists have envisaged for this election. But how that plays out, we'll wait till tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., when the exercise will begin, to find out.
Thanks a lot, Seun, for the updates. And just for our viewers who are watching here in Nigeria and around the world, Channels Television will be bringing you an update. We have a team on the ground and we'll be reporting from the crack of dawn tomorrow till the results are in. Thanks again, Seun. In part two, after the break, more political parties beat INEC's deadline for the submission of candidates list for the 2023 general elections. Plus, Supreme Court sets aside the restriction on the use of hijab by female Muslim students in public primary and secondary schools by the Lagos State government. That's all in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Funeral mass holds for the victims of June 5th deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State. Governor Akeredolu says government has failed to protect the people. All set for tomorrow's governorship election in Ekiti State as INEC distributes sensitive and non-sensitive materials to its registration area centers across the state. APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu submits Ibrahim Masari as his running mate as more political parties beat INEC's deadline for the submission of candidates list for the 2023 general elections. And finally, Ukraine's bid to join the European Union receives a major boost after it is recommended to be given a candidate status. Today is the deadline issued by the Independent National Electoral Commission for all parties to submit the list of their candidates for the 2023 general elections, and more political parties appear to have beaten that deadline. Among them is the All Progressives Congress, whose presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, is said to have named Kabiru Ibrahim Masari as his running mate. Meanwhile, APC presidential candidate has expressed his confidence that the party is well positioned to beat the People's Democratic Party at the presidential poll. Speaking in Abuja shortly after meeting with the governor of Imo State and chairman of the party's convention committee, Mr. Tinubu said the visit to the governor of Imo State is part of strategizing towards winning the presidential election. When taking on the issue of his running mate, the APC candidate was evasive, maintaining that he remains the rallying point of the party's presidential bid.
What is the essence of your visit to His Excellency, the Governor of Imo State?
To strengthen our party, our path to victory, our strategy to defeat PDP.
Yes, sir.
Is that enough for you?
No, sir. Sir, Your Excellency, the Governor of Imo State, was the chairman of the convention committee. How would you rate his performance of that convention?
How do you want me to? I got the victory. I'm very happy. To rate him poor.
Okay, sir. Lastly, sir, Nigerians are waiting for your running mates. Any news, any updates on that?
No, they go to Tinubu bus stop.
A former aide to former President Goodluck Jonathan, Dr. Donyo Kupe, has announced he has been selected as the running mate to the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi. Dr. Kupe made this known earlier during an interview with our political correspondent, Shimoke Baloyi, on our political program, Politics Today. When asked if he will be standing in as the vice presidential candidate in order to beat the June 17 deadline by INEC for parties to submit the list of their candidates for next year's election, he affirmed that he is the party's choice as vice presidential candidate.
We believe that choosing the vice presidential candidate is part of the electoral process. And you will understand that Mr. Peter Obi came into the Labour Party on the 29th of May, which is just about, in fact, it's exactly 3 weeks ago. Therefore, and our idea and our reasoning is to bring together in this country for the first time the largest political coalition possible, because we are facing two political giants, APC, PDP, and we are serious about upstaging them, and we will. But to do that, we cannot do it alone. We need to be able to put together this coalition and be, and the so-called third force is now alive and it is forming, and it is important for us to ensure that all the stakeholders are carried along from the beginning to the end. We do not want a situation where an action is taken, and then people feel that, okay, well, you have cooked this soup, you have finished it, what is that? What is in it for us? So because of this, I, Dr. Donyo Kupe, is standing in as the vice presidential candidate for the Labour Party.
We'll take a break from the political stories now to focus more on the solemn ceremony they held in Owo, Ondo State for the victims of the deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church on June 5th. They were laid to rest in the town today. The day started with a funeral mass held at different locations from the church, attended by family members, clergy, and state government officials.
Ever since the gruesome attack that killed 40 people at St. Francis Catholic Church on June the 5th, an air of silence has hovered over the streets of Owo Kingdom in Ondo State, southwest Nigeria. And today marks the final chapter for the community to find closure to the incident, which is still like a nightmare.
I say it's a slap, because it's many years we have not expected all those things, and we are so very sad for them.
It's the day of the burial service for the slain. Transporters file out to convey people to the venue. The morgue of St. Louis Hospital is where some of the bodies were kept. Survivors of the attack are here to accompany their departed ones.
I lost somebody who is very dear to me, a senior brother.
This man narrates what the ordeal means to his family.
I'm the only surviving son now. I have only 5 girls, that are my younger ones to attend to.
An ambulance is on ground to move the coffins to the venue of the service, where more caskets are carried into the hall. The choir's rendition is a reflection of the mood. The sermon is delivered with painful memory.
On a visit to the church with innocent blood still spattered on the floor and walls of the sanctuary, I could almost hear the victims as they were attacked right inside the church during Mass. That crime committed against humanity expressed in their lament and cries, may it never go unpunished.
What is your governor going to say in defense?
Governor Rotimi Akeredolu takes the podium to speak, but midway into his speech, the heaviness of the tragedy breaks him as he recognizes the failings of government.
I am here before you to accept a failure on security. We have failed. We have failed. We have failed to defend these people. Not because we are not trying, but because the forces on the other side, they are evil.
He is able to gather his emotions and harps on the need for a rejig of the security architecture.
So security architecture of this country needs rejigging. Something has to be done.
On the burial, those grieving opt to take charge of the process themselves.
I will carry my wife back to the mortuary there. You will stay there tomorrow. We will convene him to my hometown, Ebonyi State.
At the residence of one of the deceased, 74-year-old Madame Christiana Olajide, family members cannot control their emotions. The faces and names on the program will for a long time serve as a reminder that a lot needs to be done to achieve the objective of a safer society, where violence such as the one witnessed in Owo never repeats itself.
Really sad event in Owo. We pray for the families. Still ahead on the news at 10. World Trade Organization passes unprecedented global trade deals on fishing subsidies and health, among others. We'll have details in business news. Back to political stories. The choice of Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State as running mate to the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, is still generating controversy. This time, a chieftain of the party, Kasim Afegba, believes that the PDP erred in picking Dr. Okowa ahead of Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State. Mr. Afegba was guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily.
The PDP has a constitution, and precedent to this political era, this electoral process, they came up with a guideline. And part of the provisions or details of those guidelines is that the party will be the one that will choose a running mate for the candidate of the party. There has to be a synergy between the party and the candidate. These are contained in the guidelines that guided all these processes of primaries, choice of candidate, and VP, and all of that. Now, the party in its wisdom set up a panel, I think about 19-member panel. They took representative from the Governors Forum. They took representative from the National Assembly, Board of Trustees, NEC, and National Working Committee. And after all deliberations, they put the issue into vote. And Governor of Rivers State, Wike, got 16 votes. Governor of Delta got 3 votes. They're among the names that were presented to them. Now, they didn't stop there. They also formally wrote and gave the recommendation of that report to the candidate. But the national chairman of the party has a different motive. And I can tell you that he single-handedly, endorsed issue of Okowa emerging, because it's like a minority candidate becoming the majority.
The Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, says it is necessary for government security agencies to engage and collaborate with critical stakeholders to consolidate the success recorded so far in the fight against banditry and insurgency in the country. General Rabo was speaking at the passing out ceremony of the 2022 Stream 1 and 2 discharging trainee course in Lagos, where he also said the tempo has to be sustained to ensure the elections are conducted in a safe manner.
What we're now trying to do is that beyond the government security agencies, it's necessary to also engage with other stakeholders in a more meaningful manner so that progressively we'll be able to escalate the achievements that we are having currently. We have made huge progress, and of course there still remains a long haul to go, and we will do everything possible such that the state of peace will incrementally improve, leading up to, of course, next year that that there's a very important exercise that the nation is going to go through, which we believe that it will go on peacefully. And that is precisely what we're working on in concert with other security agencies. As they go back to their various communities or wherever they have chosen to reside, that they should be aware of subversive elements that could be lurking around. Of course, those criminal elements may want to use their expertise to foster their ignoble intentions. And so it is necessary for them to be wary of such desires so that as soon as they see them, they have the feedback mechanism to reach out towards for proper action to be taken in that regard.
In Kogi State, the State House of Assembly has impeached some principal officers for alleged gross misconduct. Those impeached are the Deputy Speaker, Ahmed Mohammed, Majority Speaker, Bello Abdullahi, Deputy Majority Leader, Ndako Idris, and Deputy Chief Whip, Moses Ododo. A member of the House, Enema Paul, who read the notice of the impeachment, signed by 17 members, also announced the names of new principal officers to include Rabiu Momo as Deputy Speaker, Mokhtar Baje as the Majority Leader, Dahiru Ahmed is the new Chief Whip, and also Honorable Enema Paul said the impeached principal officers were suspended pending the investigation of gross misconduct leveled against them by the House. Terry Kumi is in Abuja with more on the news at 10. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Amarachi. To legal matters, the Supreme Court has set aside the restriction on the use of hijab by female Muslim students in public primary and secondary schools by the Lagos State government. In a split decision of a 7-man panel of justices of 5-2, the Apex Court affirmed the earlier decision of the Court of Appeal Lagos Division, which nullified a High Court judgment that banned female students from wearing hijab with their school uniforms. In its lead majority verdict prepared by Justice Kudirat Kekerekun, but read by Justice Tijani Abubakar, the court dismissed an appeal filed by the Lagos State government against the Court of Appeal's decision.
A 7-man panel of the Supreme Court is putting to rest the debate over the use of hijab in public schools. In its split judgment, the majority of the Apex Court judges said it found no reason to reinstate the October 17, 2014 judgment by Justice Grace Onyabo of the High Court of Lagos State, which upheld the ban on the use of hijabs in public schools. However, the Court of Appeal Lagos Division on July 21, 2016 had nullified the High Court judgment that banned the use of hijab in public schools in Lagos State. The appellate court held that the High Court was wrong to dismiss a suit that two 12-year-old girls under the ages of the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria Lagos State Area Unit filed to challenge the state's decision to deny them the right to wear their hijabs to school. It maintained that the High Court erred in law when it held that the ban of hijab was a policy of the Lagos State government, who was the respondent in the case. The appellate court further held that if there was a policy, such a policy ought to have emanated from the State House of Assembly and not the executive arm of the government. The court further held that the fundamental rights of female Muslim students, as enshrined in Section 31, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution, was violated by the state government. The Apex Court, in its lead majority verdict, dismissed as lacking in merit the appeal by the Lagos State government lodged against the Court of Appeal's decision. Justice Gumel, who delivered the lead judgment, then held that the use of hijab was an Islamic injunction and an act of worship, he said, did not constitute a violation of the appellant's rights.
Anambra State Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo has flagged off the 2022 Anambra farming season with the unveiling of the Regenerative Agriculture Program to boost food sufficiency and reposition the state economy through oil palm and coconut revolution. Speaking during the event at Dr. Alex Ekweme Square, Awka, Governor Soludo says the reenactment of the oil palm revolution, which built the old eastern region, is a reactivation of the initiative of late Dr. Michael Okpara, which he will project massively to increase wealth in Anambra State.
Dr. Alex Ekweme Square, Awka, bubbles with activity as Professor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State arrives to flag off the 2022 farming season, introduce the Regenerative Agriculture Program, and launch the oil palm and coconut revolution. The governor felicitates with farmers from the 21 local government areas who gather with different produce harvested from last year's activities from their farms. Also on display are improved varieties of cassava stems, seedlings and fertilizer, which will be distributed to farmers as an incentive from the state government to support their efforts.
In Nigeria, the agricultural sector is responsible for 36% of the labor force and accounts for 24% of our GDP. More than 80% of Nigerian farmers are smallholders and are responsible for 90% of the nation's agricultural produce. Besides the economic footprint, agriculture holds the key to health.
The representative of the Minister of Agriculture commends the state for sustaining agricultural achievements, especially in rice production, hoping it will receive a bigger boost with the new administration.
On our own part, the federal government is striving hard to stimulate the effective wet and dry season farming across the country to improve the nation's gross domestic product while creating more jobs.
The blueprint of the new government on agriculture is clear.
Anambra State government would like to support
and partner with the federal government of Nigeria in the drive for diversification of the sources of foreign exchange. And the one that comes readily with little effort, the low-hanging fruit is agriculture. And palm and coconut will be the game changer if Nigeria embraces it, and Nigeria will have to embrace it beginning from Anambra State. We are launching it today.
The governor moves to launch the new coconut economy by planting a coconut plant, seen as great value for the state.
The root prevents erosion, and coconut is the only tree that you can plant for economic potential, for health benefits, and for export opportunities. So with coconut in Anambra State, we'll be able to attract foreign exchange, create jobs opportunity for our teeming youths and women, and we'll be able to transform the economy just like the Asian countries.
The event aims to empower women and youth through regenerative agriculture for sustainable development, and the governor encourages them to seize the opportunity and create wealth for themselves and the state.
That's all from Abuja. Back to Lagos for business news with Anne Waodo.
Thank you, Terry. Hello and welcome to Business News. The World Trade Organization has reached an agreement that includes commitments on fishing and pledges on health, as well as food security, after days of negotiation. The 164 member countries struck the deal, regarded as the first major agreement in almost a decade, at the 12th Ministerial Conference of the WTO, after more than 5 days of back and forth. While major trade deal includes food security, balanced outcome on fishing subsidies, and response to the pandemic, a key decision related to patent waiver on COVID-19 vaccines is also expected soon, with the United States yet to officially seal it. And back home, President Muhammadu Buhari has revealed fresh plans to stop the use of kerosene in the country by the year 2030 as part of the country's commitment for a safer and healthier global climate. The president made this known today during a virtual meeting hosted by the U.S. President Joe Biden on Major Economies Forum on Energy and Climate Change.
Our updated national determined contribution includes the waste sector, which is expected to contribute to the reduction of Nigeria's greenhouse gas emissions. This development raised an additional 2% to the national determined contribution from 45% to 47% conditionally and 20% unconditionally below business as usual. Other action plans that are inherited in our national determined contribution include A, elimination of kerosene lighting by 2030, B, increase in the use of bus rapid transit as a means of transportation for the general public. The full implementation of these measures would be effective in reducing short-lived pollutants with an 83% reduction in black carbon emission by 2030, compared to a business-as-usual scenario, and 61% reduction in methane emissions.
President Muhammadu Buhari. And let's head to the equities market now. It closed the final trading day of the week deeply in the red, triggered by losses in bellwether stocks. Larry Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, it's official. The bears have dominated this week's trading session. Not one green outing as month-to-date loss settles down 1.85%. The all-share index decreased by 600 points to close at 51,778 points, down a massive 1.21%. The culprits today are the same heavyweights like MTN Nigeria, that was down over 5%. Sell pressure with all the five fugas, taking the banking index down over 2%, and it's mostly red on the counters we track. An analyst I spoke to said this decline is due to several factors like domestic and U.S. interest rate hikes, low volume of crude oil sales, and possibly massive sale of stocks by some big pocket investors. All right, let's take a look at some of the winners today. We see Ella Lakes PLC, that's in crop production, that led the winners counter to close at 4 naira, up about 8%, followed by UACN PLC. Meanwhile, on the losers counter, we see Ardova, Livestock Feed PLC, and others topping that counter. Well, it's a shortened trading week, but all 4 trading sessions were dominated by massive sell-offs and buying pressure. Let's see how next week goes. And that's the stock market report. I'm Ladi Williams. This is back to you.
With those numbers, we end Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Have a wonderful weekend. It's back to you, Marachi.
Thanks a lot. And Russian President Vladimir Putin says he has nothing against Ukraine joining the European Union, but objects to military utilization of its territory. He made the remark after European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen recommended that the country be made an official candidate country for accession. Simon Pusey has details and more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine's bid to join the European Union has been given a major boost with a recommendation that it be granted candidate status. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said in a statement that in its defence against Russian aggression, Ukraine had demonstrated the country's aspiration and the country's determination to live up to European values and standards. However, she said the country needed certain reforms to be carried out as a condition of candidate status. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's extradition to the US has been approved by the UK Home Secretary Priti Patel.
Well, it's great to smell fresh air.
The Home Office said Mr. Assange had 14 days to appeal the decision. It said the courts found that extradition would not be incompatible with his human rights and that while in the US he will be treated appropriately. Mr. Assange is wanted by the American authorities over documents leaked in 2010 and 2011. Responding to the order, WikiLeaks said it was a dark day for press freedom and British democracy. 3 people have been shot, 2 of them fatally, inside a suburban Alabama church in Vestavia Hills. The shooting happened at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Vestavia Hills. The city of some 40,000 people is about 7 miles southeast of Birmingham. A suspect who hasn't been identified was in custody following the attack. Police did not speculate on a motive for the rampage. The lead Republican negotiator for what would be the US Senate's first gun control bill in a generation has walked out of talks with Democrats
on what will be additional costs that Congress will have to vote on.
Texas Senator John Cornyn has played a key role in drafting the framework of a proposed firearms bill following mass shootings in Texas and New York. The plans include tougher checks for buyers under the age of 21 and cracking down on illegal gun purchases. The proposals have shown some rare cross-party cooperation on the issue of gun control, but still fall far short of what many Democrats and activists have been calling for. Police say protesters in India have set fire to train coaches as demonstrations against a new military recruitment process raged for a second day. Hundreds of protesters torched train coaches in the eastern state of Bihar and the southern city of Secunderabad, causing widespread damage and disrupting rail services. It's after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government announced an overhaul of the recruitment process for the 1.38 million strong armed forces, aiming to bring in more people on short 4-year contracts to lower the overall age of personnel. Opposition parties and some members of Modi's own party say the system will lead to more unemployment. Hundreds of firefighters have kept battling the flames of a wildfire in Catalonia that has raged over 1,070 hectares. After battling the flames for 2 nights, emergency services managed to control 3 wildfires in the east of Spain, but are still struggling to stabilise the wildfire near the town of Baldomar. Hundreds of firefighters were on the ground battling the blazes with 120 trucks and 21 aircraft to fight the flames. Members of the emergency military unit joined the efforts to tackle the advance of the fire in Baldomar, where flames threatened 20,000 hectares of woods and farmland. A total of more than 1,600 hectares of pines and bushes have burned in the area so far. Outdoor public events have been banned in an area of France as a record-breaking heatwave sweeps across Europe. Concerts and large public gatherings have been called off in the Gironde department around Bordeaux. Parts of France hit 40 degrees Celsius earlier in the year than ever before, with temperatures expected to peak on Saturday. Spain, Italy and the UK are also experiencing high temperatures. And finally, dancing devils have performed in the streets of Venezuela as part of an old rite celebrating Corpus Christi, where dancers vow to the Holy Sacrament in exchange for blessings. To the sound of drums and rattles, the red-clad devils danced through the streets and received blessings from the local clergy as they sought to repay the favours the Holy Sacrament grants them. The devils of Yare are the oldest of their kind on the American continent. The celebration has been making an appearance on the streets for over 300 years, and UNESCO included Venezuela's dancing devils on its list of intangible cultural heritage in 2012. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. The Super Falcons have commenced a training camp in Abuja ahead of the 12th Women Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco next month, with 19 players already in camp. England-based defender Ashley Plumpton, midfielder Halimata Ayinde and forwards Vivian Ikechukwu and Ifeoma Onumonu are to join the squad in Morocco next week. Liverpool have agreed a €41 million deal to sell Sadio Mane to Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich. Now, the Reds will get a fixed €32 million with an additional €6 million based on appearances and €3 million based on individual and team achievements. And that sports news is back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Ayatunde. And just before we go, one more political story. The Apex Igbo Socio-Political Organization, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, has congratulated Governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, over his emergence as the vice presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, describing him as an Igbo prodigy with special grace. The group in a statement describes Okowa as a veritable tribute to humility, sincerity, simplicity, hard work, perseverance, and centrality of morals in the dynamics of power. And the main news again. A funeral mass was held today for victims of the June 5th deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State. During the solemn event, the state governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, lamented government's failure to protect the people. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.